Hi, I'm Dr. Shiloh.
And I'm Dr. Scott.
And this is LA Not So Confidential, the forensic psychology and true crime podcast.
Each week, we explore the intersection of psychology, the criminal justice system, and entertainment.
Today, our episode is on updates and news stories on previously covered forensic psych topics.
All right. It is good to be back, folks. We took our 6-week break. We made a lot of changes. We're
still making
really
changes.
Excited. We're still making changes, but it does feel like a fresh new start. We had some really, really great things, sort of closing of a couple of chapters that were ready to be closed and opening up some really kind of amazing things. I'm telling you, this is going to sound totally like Sound of Music, but when one door opens, either find a broken window to get out or just kick that fucking door right back open and make it work, because it really has worked for us. It's very
I don't
cool.
think they say that in Sound of Music.
Well, they say a version of it. Mother Superior said, I'm pretty sure Mother Superior does say at one time, just kick that fucking door open. I really think she does.
I'll have to go back and watch it. Just refresh my memory. I don't know how it went for everyone else, but that 6 weeks went by freaking fast.
So fast, even though I did an awful lot. Like I traveled a lot and came back.
That's why.
Anyway, so we're back to every other week episodes and one monthly live stream. Although we'll resume that in June, it is also possible that there may be other short live streams that happen, certainly for our Patreon members, as we've now added an additional element to our membership, which is what we call shrink wrap. It's a really great sort of, we jump on, very tight half hour of us just yapping, and it might be something that's current, might be something that we're circling back around to, and even sometimes like more personal stuff. So if you want to join us, jump over on Patreon and give us a listen. Generally, though, moving forward as we do our episodes, we're going to be sticking to forensic psych topics and themes. But if inspiration strikes us, we may throw a vintage episode or a documentary review in here and there. The doc reviews probably will be dishing on a lot in shrink wrap, I think.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good place just to kind of throw up our thoughts about it without having to go and watch something, take notes, then turn that into our episode, which was fun. I'm glad. I was thinking back on all the documentaries we watched in the last 2 years, and I'm so glad I had a reason to, but it was a lot of work. It was different than just sitting down and doing some research on the keyboard and then putting that together. So I'm not going to miss it in a certain way. I know you guys really enjoyed those, but we still will watch some stuff and we'll still find a way to talk about it somewhere, especially if you guys email us and are like, give us your thoughts on this. We'll try to find a way to do that for sure.
Yeah.
We do have some special Patreon members who went above and beyond to help us review some old episodes.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you guys by name. We did a lot of work on our time off, and so did these folks. So thank you to Lauren, Jen, Betsy, Celine, Catherine, Alexa, Donna, Sarah, Caroline, Jennifer P, Jana, Julia, Kate, Melissa, and big thanks to Emily and Abby, who we sent on a special recon mission. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being up for our requests and our crowdsourcing to get some work done.
Absolutely. Everyone, thank you, especially those that just stepped up. This was something that was going to be really incredibly tedious for us to go through 200 episodes and figure out some audio things that were baked in that needed to be removed. And I was going to Shiloh, I was like, let's crowdsource this. We've got listeners who, and everybody stepped up. It was wonderful. Emily and Abby, we sent them out of not necessarily their comfort zone because they're both amazing women, but they went and did some reconnaissance and came back with some really much needed objective opinions on a production that we were not able to go and see. And they gave us really some good tips for helping us polish our own work. And I really appreciate that. As far as festivals go, we are going to be speaking at CrimeCon UK in September. Very, very exciting. So excited to go back. Really excited to go back at my favorite time of year, which is end of summer. I love that. And then almost immediately afterwards, we have a great opportunity with the wonderful Josh Hallmark and all of his associates at the Berkshire Podcast Festival in October. So while we're always happy to attend conferences and conventions, having the opportunity to present as subject matter experts really takes it just completely to the next level for us. What an
Yeah.
opportunity.
Definitely. And during our hiatus, getting to do that at the California Association of Criminalists conference at the Biltmore was so much fun. So we can't wait to get back into it. CrimeCon UK, the ultimate true crime event, returns to London on September 21st and 22nd. CrimeCon UK is the world's leading true crime event and is partnered by True Crime, the expert-led channel previously known as CBS Reality, which is available on your platform of choice.
We're really excited to return to CrimeCon UK as presenters, and we know that you're going to love this event if you haven't been before. As an attendee, you are going to have a great opportunity to sit in on really fascinating sessions with some of the biggest and truly legit names in the true crime genre. And you can share a pint with your favorite podcasters. Hopefully, Dr. Shiloh and I will fit that
Yes.
criteria as well. We're honored to be a part of the presentation panels. CrimeCon UK is truly an unforgettable way for you to really immerse yourself in an ethical true crime community while exploring all the sites of London's rich history.
Yes. And I know we've said it before, but we have to mention again that the perks have been completely revamped this year. Tickets are going to include that free flow coffee, tea, biscuits, flavored water over your entire weekend, and you'll get plenty of time to network with the crime contributors at their tables. And the benefits for VIP ticket holders have also been completely overhauled, giving them really exclusive access and far more bang for your buck. So please go check that out on their website.
Yeah, if you can, join us this year. We're going to have a great brand new presentation for you. Use the code confidential for your special 10% discount. The more of our listeners that are able to use that code, the more it helps us pay for our trip and our accommodations. So please don't forget to use confidential for 10% off. Head over to crimecon.co.uk to book your tickets today.
Yes. And then, as we mentioned, in October, we'll be meeting up with some of our favorite podcasts for peak fall foliage in beautiful Berkshire County, Massachusetts. And we want you to join us.
We will be live at the Berkshire Podcast Festival October 19th in North Adams, Massachusetts for an incredible podcast event and a live show featuring tons of podcasts, including Truth and Justice, Crime Lines, Defense Diaries, Justin from Generation Y, and The Trail Went Cold. We also have it on some under the table communication that there's going to be several other high profile podcasters there just to hang out with everybody. They're recognizable names, but I'm going to leave them as surprises.
Sounds good. The Berkshires are conveniently located in Western Massachusetts, just a quick trip from Albany, Boston, New York City, Montreal, and Philadelphia. Come explore the world-class museums, the birthplace of farm-to-table dining, yes, please, and the epicenter of the Gilded Age, and then soak up the sounds of some of your favorite podcasts for this weekend-long event. To buy tickets, to see who's coming, and to learn more about the Berkshires, go to BerkshirePodcastFestival.com.
And if you're a Patreon member, you get a special discount on tickets. Read our Patreon post from April 11th titled Berkshire Podcast Festival. And if you're not a member yet, you can join at patreon.com/LA Not So Podcast.
Okay. Thank you for bearing with us. That was quite a lot to get through. We wanted to get that right off the top before jumping in, but we also have our last episode recap. So way back in March, episode 181, that was the documentary review on I Am Vanessa Guillen, a 2022 Netflix original documentary, and it tells the horrific story of a young U.S. soldier who was brutally murdered at Fort Hood military base by another soldier. Having endured what appeared to be several accounts of sexual harassment before her murder, Vanessa's family is determined to really reveal the truth in this case, taking their case all the way to Congress. I'm so glad we did this one. It was such an impactful episode. And, you know, it actually was a documentary we had bumped a couple of times because something sort of fresh and hot came out. And I'm so glad we circled back and ended up getting it in there before we stopped doing these reviews.
Absolutely. And today we thought we'd ease back in by bringing you some updates and news stories on topics that we previously covered. Just as a trigger warning, as we give you sort of the subject that we're going into, just be aware if there's something connected to that that may upset you. We're going to be talking about a little bit of things that sound like conspiracy theories, violence, sexual assault. We'll cover a few things. So as always, please listen with your own best interests in mind. Thank you.
Yeah. So the one I want to start out with, we actually never did a standalone episode on this phenomenon, which is Havana syndrome. However, we have mentioned it here and there. Actually, I think the most we touched on it was in a listener questions episode. And even since then, I mean, so much has transpired. But I want to say a big thanks to our listener, Judith, because she just continued to keep us informed of developments over the last couple of years, sending us articles. She and I have gone back and forth, just kind of DMing about things that were coming out. And then I went back and listened to a podcast all about it. So this is a really fascinating topic.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that Judith has something that we can appreciate as well, and that is a deep dive and a focus on a subject that she gets really passionate about,
Yeah.
because this is one that I've been fascinated about, although it's literally, since it started happening, has just been back and forth as to what went on. So just to give people like a brief overview, if you don't have haven't done a deep dive into this, Havana syndrome was a name given to symptoms initially believed to be some kind or some form of weaponized attacks, either bacterial, biological, or the big theory was that they were acoustic attacks via some sort of unknown technology on US and Canadian embassy staff, first reported in Cuba. So beginning back in August 2017, reports came up that American and Canadian diplomatic personnel in Cuba had suffered a variety of health problems that included headaches and loss of balance, as well as sleep, concentration, and memory difficulties. There were also additional symptoms that could include digestive, gastric, and dermal issues in a subset of the alleged victims. Some impacted individuals described the abrupt onset, sometimes in the middle of the night, of a loud, grinding, clicking, buzzing, or high pitched, piercing sound inside their heads, occasionally describing it as something like a slide whistle, and then the sensation of pressure, sometimes in one ear or on the side of the head or in the face or chest. And most significantly, these phenomenon often displayed strong location dependence, in that they quickly dissolved or dissipated when those individuals vacated their initial location and then returned when the location was revisited. Again, so geolocated,
Hmm.
dependent symptoms that dissipated or stopped when they left that location, that hotel room, that area, but then immediately came back when they returned to the area.
Yeah. So, in mostly like government tactics, because you don't see this like in local law enforcement necessarily, but they call it when you sense some sort of danger where you're at, they call it getting off the X, like as if you're standing on an X where something is targeted at you, like to get away from that, get out of that targeted area. It could just literally be standing in an area in your kitchen where there's a window, right? And that's what people would do. They would get off the X, move away, move to a different room, and it would go away. So the government and researchers formally, they don't call it Havana syndrome, they formally call it anomalous health incidents. So back when we discussed this on that listener's question episode in 2020, there was a MedPub article in which scientists reported that Havana syndrome did have a biological cause. And they were stating back then that it was found to be exposure to high levels of pesticides that are banned here in the US, which kind of made sense to you and I. Are like, okay, they're outside of the US. They might be using these pesticides. You know, Havana syndrome wasn't being experienced here. So maybe. And that's all we
Yeah,
had back then.
that's all we had to work with. But then in March of 2024, so just a couple of months ago, Dr. Relman of the University of Pennsylvania published his findings that determined that there were actually differences in the brain scans of people with Havana syndrome symptoms and those of a control group. So his opinion was that the other studies that recently came out are in fact flawed. And he has been a really strong supporter of those impacted by the debilitating injuries. I find that really fascinating because it's wonderful to have an academic or a medical professional or a psych professional that acts as your advocate.
Mm,
However,
yeah.
the
Yep.
problem is that if you become too involved and too hyper focused on a singular subset of phenomenon, then you can lose objectivity. I'm not saying that that's happening with Dr. Relman. I'm just pointing out that it's one of the things that we run into as professionals. You have to be very careful about that.
Yes. So the research that he was referring to as being flawed was also some very recent data that came out, and that was conducted by the National Institutes of Health. And they did not uncover any signs of brain injury in the brain scans. They also looked at blood markers of the diplomats and spies that were supposedly affected by Havana syndrome. And these results support the conclusions of US intelligence agencies regarding the very peculiar health incidents that had previously been put out. And intelligence agencies have determined that the distressing symptoms linked to Havana syndrome, such as vertigo and headaches, are not attributable to hostile foreign entities. They have not pinpointed a specific weapon or device responsible for these ailments. And intelligence analysts now suspect that environmental factors or pre existing medical conditions or stress might offer more plausible explanations, which really, those supposed possible explanations really piss off the people that are suffering from this.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. So the scientists from the National Institutes of Health stated that they did not diagnose the patients with traumatic brain injuries or concussions. Instead, they provided diagnoses of, open quote, functional neurological disorders, close quote, which are frequently attributed to stress. Have to say, it absolutely is true that a lot of the symptoms that were initially presented can absolutely be a result of high levels of stress. But I'm going to
Yes,
hand it back to you.
but I think I fall on the side where I'm calling BS on that. I highly, highly recommend people go listen to the Vice podcast, Havana Syndrome. That's what it's called. Obviously they get on the ground, they talk to a lot of folks that are impacted by this. I mean, there were reports of individuals over there whose children experienced these symptoms while traveling in the car seat in the back seat of a car. Like, to me, just hearing that was like, okay, this child is not a spy or a diplomat. It doesn't have like a crazy stressful job. And while
Right.
you're in a car, that's like could be incredibly targeted as you're leaving your house. And it's very scary to think how it would impact your family.
Well, yeah, the diagnosis from the National Institute for Health upset a lot of the individuals experiencing those symptoms. And it's completely understandable that they found it insulting and misguided because it seems to suggest that their symptoms were psychosomatic or the product of mass hysteria, right?
Hmm.
I strongly feel, as I think you do too, that we really think that there should be additional research, and it's much needed because it should be noted that these incidents occurred in a region that continues to have a strained relationship with the United States and other foreign entities. When we consider what is known about existing known military technology, that in itself lends credence to a marked lack of attention to Havana syndrome. It's a little bit like, come on, guys, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, for
Yeah.
some fascinating and concerning information about what is out there in military technology, please go back and look up on YouTube the 2008 episode of 60 Minutes, and the demonstration of the United States Army's pain ray blew my mind. And when
Mm.
we were researching that, to watch, I can't remember which 60 Minutes guy it is. He's like was middle aged at the time, and here this truck is from 3 football fields away, turns on and starts beaming something towards him, and the guy's whole body just it's
Yeah.
like and he's so shaken up, and he says, "Yeah, it feels like my entire body was on fire."
Yeah.
He's jumping around to get out of the way of the ray. I mean, it's truly science fiction becoming science fact.
Yeah. I'll keep this very, very short, but I think part of how I lean towards BS is I know someone, I don't know them terribly well, but I've spent some time with them, retired military, retired law enforcement that now does some sort of, let's just say, like black ops stuff. And he was specifically on a mission to go try and find the source of these anomalous health incidents. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, there's someone out there at least trying to find it. Maybe they
Of
were just trying to find it
course.
and they found nothing, but you know,
There's a lot more going on behind the scenes than anybody knows. And I'm not saying that as a conspiracy theorist. I'm saying that, like,
well, of course not.
for a huge, enormous country like we are,
Yeah.
you and I both working in tandem with law enforcement and even consulting with federal agencies, like, it's just very clear that what we don't hear about is the things that are taken care of. Because if you really knew what
Yep.
was going on, people would be terrified.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway,
Everything that was thwarted. In several episodes, we've covered various forms and events concerning mass hysteria, which we just mentioned. This often comes up when anyone talks about Havana syndrome. So if you want to go back to our gang stalking episode, which was number 62, and our Folie à Deux episode way back, number 28, we have links to all the articles, the research, and a 60-minute video of coverage of Havana syndrome that's super interesting. So we'll put all those in the show notes for you guys.
so Folie à Deux shared psychosis seems very familiar in several recent cases, including Ruby Frank and her therapist, Jodie Hildebrandt, which is a horrific story of child abuse and narcissism and delusion, as well as
Oh,
even more horrific events around the murders of Lori Vallow's spouse and her children. So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, this stuff continues to happen. If you're not following the Eight Passengers saga, it's kind of gone underground a little bit after one of her poor children was able to escape the house and was found by neighbors, like the wife of the neighbor, the female
Uh
neighbor,
huh.
when she
Uh
saw the
huh.
kid, just like burst into tears about
Oh,
how emaciated he was.
yeah. The
So,
Chad
yeah.
Daybell trial is going on right now, too.
Oh, wasn't aware of that. There's not getting a
Yeah.
lot of coverage right now.
No, it's not. I think people are toggling back and forth between that and the Karen retrial. When I was on a chat of the Karen retrial, which you can hear me talk about that in our shrink wrap episode, but someone in the chat when we were watching it live said, I think I'm going to go back to the zombie Chad Daybell trial because that one at least is less bananas than this one.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, you have to. I think that's actually a great decision for self care. Like, okay, this
Right?
one is triggering me, or it's not what I want to be hearing right now. Let me go to something that, I mean, as horrific as the deaths are in the Vallow and Daybell crimes, it's so bugfuck crazy. It's
Yeah.
almost entertaining. And that I don't want to be disrespectful to the multiple people who lost their lives through these completely delusional individuals, but
For
still.
sure.
But moving on, we covered the topic of familicide back in 2020. Oh my gosh, 2020 in episode 37. And we've also covered cases of family annihilation like in episode 132. And last year, we saw an interesting case here in California that has had some recent updates that I think is really notable because we didn't spend a lot of time on it. In January of 2023, California doctor Dharmesh Patel intentionally drove his Tesla off a 250-foot cliff with his wife and two young kids inside. This was in San Mateo County along the California coastline. The incident was determined to be an attempted murder suicide, although everyone survived the crash. Dr. Patel faces 3 counts of attempted murder for the incident that took place on a stretch of the Pacific Coast Highway known as Devil's Slide. There you go. Dr. Patel has entered a plea of not guilty to the charges. He initially claimed that his Tesla Model Y experienced tire issues when it drove off the cliff. However, witnesses said Patel's Tesla did not show any signs of slowing down before the accident. And despite the severity of the situation, Nia Patel, his wife, has appealed to a Redwood City judge to opt for a mental health treatment program rather than imprisonment for her husband. She expressed a very emotional and strong need for his presence in their lives. And she spoke and conveyed all this through a Zoom call to the judge and talked about the significant impact of his absence in their lives. She's quoted as saying, "It has been over a year and a half since my children or I have seen or spoken to Dharmesh. We are not a family without him."
Yeah, this was, especially initially when this happened, super surprising because she came out and supported him, right away. So her stance comes even though immediately after the crash, she had informed first responders that Dharmesh had, as she said, quote, intentionally tried to kill us. And both she and one of their children sustained really serious injuries in the crash, but have recovered. And despite the traumatic event, Neha Patel's recent statements really suggest a minimization of the gravity of her husband's actions, focusing instead on the supposed abnormality of behavior and what she believes to be is the treatability of this.
Mm.
This was evidenced by her court testimony emphasizing the treatability of Dharmesh's diagnosed schizoaffective disorder and the unprecedented nature of the incident in their 25-year marriage. I mean, I'm very empathetic to it. I mean, what a tough situation to be in if you've known this man for
Absolutely.
this long.
Absolutely.
Nothing like this has ever happened, but then he has a diagnosis and you see some of this behavior and then this incredibly horrific act of violence happens. What do you do with that? But the defense supports this perspective, suggesting that Dharmesh acted under a psychotic delusion. At the end of April of this year, a psychologist testified that Dharmesh Patel suffered from psychosis and had delusions about his children being kidnapped and molested, a delusion that we see time and time again that is leading to a
Yes.
lot of violence this day and age. Additionally, it was documented that the delusions were also sparked by the nation's fentanyl crisis and the war in Ukraine. A lot of heavy issues there that it seems like he was struggling with.
Well, again, we've talked about this as a clinical factor many times in events. While people don't snap, there is the increasing significance and culpability of additional stress. So what you just shared was multiple layers of stress just piling on, piling on, piling on. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was leading up to something like this. That there
Sure.
were probably symptoms. I would say also that in the immediate aftermath of the accident, a victim, a survivor is probably going to be in shock, but they're probably going to be speaking the plain truth of what they
Yeah.
experienced. And now coming forward, she's minimizing it. It just feels messy all the way around. And the good thing is that we have really, really great medications for schizoaffective disorder. There are really good medications for schizoaffective disorder. Perhaps he was on them and this was a push through event. That certainly can happen. But wow, I just really hope the best for them. So if the court decides in favor of what we call diversion to a mental health treatment program, Dharmesh could be released from jail and enter a 2-year specialized program with the requirement that any noncompliance would revert his case to criminal court. In my experience, though, I'm just going to say it out loud, that doesn't have a lot of teeth. It does
In
not
what
have a
way?
lot of teeth.
What do you mean?
Well, it doesn't have a lot of teeth. They can say, oh, that any noncompliance. Well, what do you mean by noncompliance? Because
Mhm.
noncompliance for mental health treatment doesn't necessarily mean compliance with medication. It doesn't.
Oh, okay.
You cannot compel individuals to take medication outside of a conservatorship unless a judge is willing to go, screw that, I'm going to make this happen. But it gets to be a little bit of a gray area because this is,
Yeah.
as you know, this is the work I do. And it's frustrating, especially for individuals that we know could really benefit from medication management.
So generally that's not a stipulation that's written in there because they can't enforce it, but a judge might be able to sort of add that
It's
in as a stipulation. And
It's more like I, as an advocate, in many cases, will beg the judge, basically,
please
please
make
put this
this.
in.
Got
But
it.
many times, judges in this position are not savvy about mental health issues, and they just think,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, but the medication is part of it." And I have to explain to them, actually, this is a gray area, and outside of a conservatorship, you cannot compel someone. It's a long story for those of you that are interested in sort of the nuances of this. Go back and listen to our Britney Spears episode on her
Mhm.
particular conservatorship, and we go a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So turning to some more recent episodes, you guys will recall our two-parter on sovereign citizens. For many of you, this was a first introduction to this group, and for that, we are sorry. But, someone's got to let you in on the worst of humanity. If you enjoyed it, if you thought it was interesting, you will like our next episode that's coming out after this one at the end of the month. So stay tuned. But the sovereign citizen movement has fully transitioned from what was once an eye roll inducing phenomenon that made for some fascinating YouTube videos into ongoing incidents that have escalated into violence in recent years. And here are some very recent examples. On July 6, 2023, Paul Grice, a member of the anti-government group God's Misfits, visited the county clerk's office in Cimarron County, Boise City, Oklahoma. He filed a document in which he attempted to renounce his U.S. citizenship, among other assertions. And he even paid a $104 fee for the filing, which is unusual for them to want to pay for things. But I guess he thought it would get his message across. So his motivations remain unclear, but the document he filed, a 35-page declaration, paints a picture of a worldview deeply entrenched in conspiracy theories, legal misconceptions, and religious extremism. In this document, Grice asserted bizarre claims typical of the sovereign citizen movement, such as living in the quote, Oklahoma Republic and rejecting US governance, which he claimed had been illegitimate since the Civil War. He described his children as his God given property, which made them immune to governmental authority as well, and echoed conspiracy theories about child trafficking by state and federal entities. This is really interesting because I don't know if I mentioned this, but at the last big negotiator conference I went to, there was an agency who was doing a debriefing on a situation where the man who was barricaded in his home with his child, there was nothing ever sovereign citizen that came out about it, but he was convinced that his child had been trafficked and molested and that the police and some government entities were in on it. And a lot of his statements, again, weren't so much sovereign citizen, but I was getting flavors of QAnon conspiracies from it. So again, we're just sort of starting to see this more and more. I think an upcoming episode we should do, and possibly even have a guest on, would be in sex trafficking, to really talk about the realities of that or not.
Which is very much a real thing. And
Mhm.
that makes it particularly difficult for individuals such as this who have a delusional belief system. You know, they're not fully psychotic. There's a lot of narcissism. There's a lot of I am special that drives this. But there is that area that tips over into delusion. And as the stats are now showing, this has moved up in significance for the government looking at dangerous extremism.
Right, right. So on April 24th, Grice became the 5th member of God's Misfits to be arrested, linked to the murder of the 2 Kansas moms caught up in that custody dispute. This was
Wow.
a very high profile incident a few weeks back when the women were missing. The plot involved an ambush and resulted in their deaths, with their bodies being discovered in a hidden grave on a rural property. And the victims were 27-year-old Veronica Butler and 39-year-old Jillian Kelly. So this is really big news. I mean, a lot of people were interested in this case. Where did these 2 moms disappear to? And then eventually they found their remains. And Mr. Grice was involved in this whole group that murdered them.
Again,
It looks that way.
just another illustration of how it's moving into violence, where sovereign citizens really, up until just a few years ago, were often seen as sort of comedic, like they're, ridiculous encounters with police when they're being pulled over with cardboard license plates. And
Yeah.
now, unfortunately, it's morphing into more and more exhibition of violence, which we're going to be talking about more as well. And building on more, another faction of the sovereign citizen movement in the Southeast US is what we call the Moorish citizens. So sovereign citizens are in the news again, more recently around this time too, just within the last few weeks, in Polk County, Florida. A violent confrontation unfolded in a public park after hours, leading to 2 deputies being hospitalized and a sovereign citizen shot dead by law enforcement. And this incident occurred on April 27th when a deputy approached a man who remained in the park past closing time. Despite being asked to vacate the premises, the man, identified as a Moorish sovereign citizen, resisted and refused to cooperate with the officer, according to Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd. The situation escalated rapidly after the initial deputy retreated to her vehicle to call for backup. Almost immediately after, Lieutenant Chad Anderson and Deputy Craig Smith arrived at the scene, unaware initially of the man's sovereign citizen identity. The deputies attempted to remove him from his vehicle. It was at this point that the man produced a firearm and began shooting. That resulted in wounding of Anderson in the arm and chest, and Smith with 4 gunshot wounds. The backup deputies responded with gunfire, ultimately resulting in the death of the assailant, whom Sheriff Judd declared was killed graveyard dead in the exchange. Maybe watch what you're saying.
What a term. What a term.
Yeah, let's avoid those terms, please, in officer-involved shootings. So this incident, again, underscores this ongoing risk posed by individuals who identify with the sovereign sovereign citizen movement, particularly those who align with the Moorish sovereign citizens movement. Moorish sovereigns, they have an interpretation, a belief in an interpretation of society with special rights and privileges that convey to them a sovereign immunity that places them beyond federal and state authority. Their beliefs are rooted in a very, very complex narrative that combines elements of African American history with a misunderstanding of constitutional rights and citizenship, just like other sovereign citizen groups. This confrontation in Polk County is just another reminder of the significant dangers that are posed by extremist ideologies, especially when those ideologies come in direct contact with law enforcement and safety officers who are performing their duties. Really, really significant.
Yep. Just another case of that. Geez, QAnon. Do we dare revisit this one? We're just getting to all the messy ones today.
I know. But I think these two examples are actually really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So for a full rundown of QAnon circa 2020, please check out our episode number 42, which was titled QAnon and Conspiracy Theories. And since 2020, there's just a few related cases out there, but here are a couple for you. So I love this. I was like, Queen of Canada. What the hell is the Queen of Canada? So in September of 2023, Romana Didulo, a conspiracy theorist inspired by QAnon, led her group of followers to settle in Richmond, which is a small village in southwestern Saskatchewan. This group, which had been traveling across Canada in motorhomes, took residence in a former school. According to Thomas Fougere from Community TV in nearby Medicine Hat, yes, that's the name of a city, Didulo and her 15 to 25 followers had been at the site for about a week. Their presence quickly became a point of contention, leading to about 100 residents circling the school with tractors and semi-trucks. Essentially, I guess they use the term urging the group to leave. Sounds like some tractor intimidation. But that,
I love that.
That property...
Farm equipment involved intimidation.
That property is really important to the community. It's, their local playground. It's a bike area for children. And here are these nomads kind of setting up camp there. So Romana Didulo, who's 48, she moved from the Philippines to Canada during her teenage years and ventured into politics after running several businesses, finally forming a fringe political party in 2020. Gaining endorsement from QAnon leaders, she amassed followers with her claim as the Queen of Canada, asserting that she had overthrown Canada's legitimate government with the backing of secret U.S. military factions. All right. And on her Telegram channel, followed by over 36,000 people, Didulo issued decrees that led some of her followers to lose their homes and possessions. This was quite a concern that has been highlighted by a professor at Chatham University, Christine Starstecki, who's been kind of following this and looking at the phenomenon of these fringe groups popping up, particularly in Canada. So Didulo's followers adhere to a mix of sovereign citizen ideologies, anti-vax theories, and QAnon beliefs. As a quick refresher, because this will likely gain traction more and more this year, QAnon is a baseless theory suggesting that former U.S. President Donald Trump is secretly battling a global cabal of elite Satan-worshipping pedophiles in government and the media. Or is it? Is this all just... I don't know.
People are going to figure out that that's why we look so good, why we look so young, is all the adrenochrome that we get sent to us by our listeners. That's probably going to be it, right?
Well, I need to double up. So, but although QAnon centers on U.S. narratives, it has found traction globally, including in parts of Canada, obviously. So Didulo's group has been active in events like the Freedom Convoy protests in Ottawa and has previously faced legal issues, such as an indictment in Peterborough, Ontario, where they attempted to arrest police officers. This group's extreme stances include Didulo's calls for violence against individuals administering COVID vaccines to children. So the situation in Richmond has been a tense one, with the community wary but unable to take really formal action since the school property is privately owned. Local officials, including the mayor, are monitoring the situation from the last time we checked on it. And then the police are investigating an assault that was reported during a recent protest. So no arrests have been made there, but just sounds like a crazy, crazy situation with the new queen up there to our north.
Right. And as much as it sounds like a bit of a joke, her followers have been very serious. They have made a lot like evangelicals who follow a belief in the rapture. Many of her people have lost their homes, their belongings, their finances. They've given money to her. And one thing that she told very early on was that they didn't have to pay their utility bills. So a lot of people just stopped paying. And then when
Yeah.
they were getting liens on their property and the things were building up, it just turned bad. Clearly a dangerous individual. All
Yeah.
jokes aside, she's a dangerous
Well,
individual.
it's interesting to see how, in 2020, essentially QAnon being really the first high profile online cult has
Right.
now transitioned into a real life one. This is classic cult tactics and actions
Yeah.
happening out there in Canada.
Yeah. So we have a couple of more facets of QAnon continuing to raise its head, much like the mythological Hydra, lop off one head and 9 more come in. So in November 2021, followers of QAnon influencer Michael Protzman, also known as Negative 48, all gathered in Dallas, Texas, expecting the resurrection of John F. Kennedy and John F. Kennedy Jr. Despite multiple failed predictions by Protzman, a core group of his followers remain in Dallas hoping for this miracle.
I'm sorry, but they know JFK is buried in Arlington National Cemetery, right? And JFK Jr. was buried at sea. They're not going to resurrect from Dallas.
Dr. Shiloh, that's what they want you to think, right? That's what that's what the shadow government wants you to think. Initially, the group's actions, such as singing in Dealey Plaza and sort of, playful antics in a hotel, seemed harmless but odd. But their prolonged stay and escalating behaviors have led many observers to label them as a cult and prompt law enforcement concern. Recently, about 30 followers were seen engaging in activities like meditation and smoke smudging at Reunion Arena Park. And this was in contrast to their earlier, more active gatherings, but it hasn't done anything to ease growing concerns about their direction and Protzman's influence. So more concerning details have emerged, of course, about Protzman's past as people have kind of done some research. One of the most significant things is a 2019 arrest for unlawful imprisonment and domestic violence. Protzman himself has denied these charges in a WhatsApp message stating, "No truth was found because it didn't happen. Go ask her if you have the balls."
Because WhatsApp is where I put all of, my denials.
Yeah, that's it, because everybody can access it. That's perfect. Protzman's strong psychological influence is evidence as some followers have left their families to join him in Dallas. Katie Garner expressed concerns to Rolling Stone about her sister, who had been with the group for over a month. At this point, it must be done because I don't think she's coming home. She left her kids and her husband, Garner says.
Oh.
Social media platforms have begun to crack down on content from Protzman's group due to unsettling messages about physical death and moving to the next phase. What does that sound like?
There you go. Classic.
Heaven's Gate. Totally sounds like Heaven's Gate, right? Protzman continues to communicate with his followers via the Negative 48 Telegram channel, where he recently posted, "There is no more room in the plan for arrogance and self-impotence. Prepare for the next phase. Prepare each other." What does that mean, right?
Yeah.
Protzman also shared health concerns among his group with symptoms consistent with COVID-19 reported in their Telegram video chats. So Protzman often posts obscure Christian numerology. This is a very big thing currently in QAnon is numerology. He reposts a lot of things from far-right figures and a lot of anti-Semitic propaganda. And when he was confronted, Protzman engaged in Holocaust denial, and he went even so far as to say that the crematorium at Auschwitz was constructed post-World War II as sort of a propaganda site.
Right.
So despite internal disputes within QAnon, Protzman's group continues to promote extremist and now widely identified fascistic ideas. Their belief system includes Trump fighting a satanic cabal mixed with New Age and mystical beliefs. We saw a lot of that during COVID here in Beverly Hills. We had several bizarre combinations of far right and far left protesters that were, it was like something out of a movie. So the For God and Country Patriot Roundup conference in July highlighted these extremist views. However, the group's antics and media coverage have led to a rift within the QAnon community, with some influencers distancing themselves from Protzman. How interesting is that? Is like, how crazy do you have to be for other QAnon believers to say, yeah, you know what? You're a little too much for us.
Whoa, whoa,
Um,
whoa.
yeah, whoa.
Bring it down a notch,
Let's
buddy.
bring it down a notch. We're not sure about zombie ex-presidents coming back to save us. But Protzman remains defiant. He posted on Telegram, quote, "The mainstream media, MSM, will not cover any of our truth. They only make fun of us. So all that's going on in Dallas is foolishness to them, and it had to be for them to cover it and give national attention to what the cabal did."
Phew, I am exhausted. That's wild, wild stuff. But we got one more for you. Last but not least, Baby Q. So here we go. Austin Steinbart, a self-proclaimed time traveler and QAnon adherent, claims he is a deep cover agent for the Defense Intelligence Agency and identifies himself as Q. He asserts that QAnon is a military intelligence operation utilizing I'm sorry, like I can't say any of this without laughing anymore. Utilizing, quote, space age quantum technology to send messages from the future to present day internet forums. You guys got that? All right. These claims are widely dismissed within the QAnon community itself, with many followers considering him, again, way too extreme. Steinbart's unconventional ideas led him to become the campaign manager for Jerome Davidson, a retired NFL player turned Republican congressional candidate in Arizona's new 4th congressional district.
Davison, formerly of the Oakland Raiders, confirmed Steinbart's role on social media, responding to critiques by asserting that criticisms were due to fear of his campaign by the left. Steinbart, also known as Baby Q, has promoted heavy QAnon themes in Davison's campaign, including embedding QAnon slogans in the campaign website's metadata. This was revealed in a video on his Discord channel. The state of Arizona has become a hotspot for the influence of Donald Trump's faction within the Republican Party, with widespread acceptance of election fraud conspiracies and QAnon theories. Notable political figures in Arizona linked to QAnon include Ron Watkins and state legislator Wendy Rogers.
So, in addition to his controversial political claims, Steinbart has faced legal issues, including a guilty plea in 2021 for hacking celebrities' medical records, and he served 225 days in prison. Further complicating his legal history, Steinbart was reported by the Daily Beast to have used a fake penis, known as a Wizinator, to cheat a drug test while on pretrial bail in September 2020.
So let's just mark this as a watershed moment in our over 200 episodes that
we have never used the term Wizinator.
True. Even though I have seen them, I've worked at a lot of clinics with parolees and probationers where they've had to be drug tested, and they don't just have fake penises, they have them for women too. So get yours today. To beat those drug tests.
I know. Addiction is a harsh mistress. Let me just say that.
Addiction is a harsh mistress. So despite these controversies, Davison has staunchly defended Steinbart, suggesting on the right-wing Jim Price show that the FBI had set up his campaign manager and that fake campaign websites had been created to undermine him. Steinbart also appeared on the Jim Price show, describing Davison as a nuclear-grade red pill for the country. Incel overlap here, right?
Great.
Nuclear grade red pill for the country.
Fantastic.
So he was also discussing his strategy to appeal to Democratic voters with campaign materials that are not overtly pro-Trump. So good for you for putting all your plans out there. Good for you.
That should work out great. Steinbart's claims and actions have not only attracted law enforcement scrutiny, but have also led to his marginalization within the broader QAnon movement, where he is nearly universally regarded as not credible, which is, again, really saying something.
Shocker.
Davison faces significant challenges in his primary race, competing against 4 other Republicans, including frontrunner Tanya Wheelis, a former executive with the Phoenix Suns, and chief of staff to ex-Senator Martha McSally. As of March 31st, Davison has raised the least amount of money among the candidates. So keep your eye on that, folks. Arizona, please do what you need to do. All right. I need to wash off all the conspiracy and cult and extremism, and we're totally going to shift gears here.
Why don't you just jump into the Sleepy Lagoon? There you go.
Yeah, I'm going to let
To
the
wash
Sleepy
off all the
Lagoon
QAnon.
do it. So one of our very last vintage cases was the Zoot Suit riots. And of course, we've mentioned our listener, John, who is a wealth of information, and he found a little bit more, just kind of linking a couple things when it came to the Zoot Suit riots and the Sleepy Lagoon murder. So regarding the Sleepy Lagoon murder, the crime that essentially kicked off the Zoot Suit riots, John looked into whether or not the location was named after the popular song and instrumental of the time. The popular song was called Sleepy Lagoon, and it was recorded in 1942 by big band leader and trumpeter Harry James. So, according to good old Wikipedia, he found that, yes, quote, at the height of the Coates Lawrence song's popularity in 1942, the small reservoir near Los Angeles was christened the Sleepy Lagoon by local youths. The reservoir was located near the city of Maywood at approximately what is now the 5400 block of Lingberg Lane in the city of Bell, which is just outside the city of Los Angeles. And after the media's extensive use of the song title when reporting on the Sleepy Lagoon murder in that same year, the name just sort of stuck, became permanent, although the reservoir itself has since disappeared, like other bodies of water in Southern California. He
Absolutely.
also, yeah, all too often, unfortunately, even though there are way more bodies of water very full right now than I have ever seen. So that's good for us. He also noted that a Hollywood movie called Sleepy Lagoon that was made in 1943 came out 3 months after the riots. And while Wikipedia says it's unrelated to the song or the murder, IMDb shows that it includes the song in the film. So it starred Judy Canova. She was an American comedian, actress, singer, and radio personality who also appeared on Broadway as well as in numerous films. So just a little historical context for one of our also well-received vintage episodes on the Zoot Suit riots.
And then we also want to offer a correction. So episode 145 from Kelly, who wrote in about our documentary review of The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, which, by the way, has another release to it with that adoptive dad looking like a complete buffoon, but that's a whole other story.
We are not giving any more attention to that, guys.
Seriously, I'm not. But Kelly, who wrote in about our documentary review of The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, which, thank you very much, Kelly. I'm glad to know this. Like, I don't know if I can watch any more of that story because there's not a reliable narrator to be found anywhere in there, but interesting. But what Kelly says is, hi, I don't know exactly how to look to see if you've been told this before, but in episode 145, Detective Davenport is actually still quite alive. He lives in Angola, Indiana. He was my granddaughter's YMCA basketball coach, and he's amazing. I love that. Kelly, thank you so much for updating us on that. We did report him as deceased. We incorrectly reported him as deceased.
I'm sorry. You reported. No, I'm just kidding. No, I was like, thank you, Kelly. I don't know what the heck we wrote or where we got that or why that sentence in that script, if you will, for that episode was written in that way. And we're glad he's alive and he's an awesome basketball coach.
Yeah.
So, and
no, I mean, in all seriousness, that was a mistake on our part. I want to go back. I'm actually going to go back and look at our sources and see how I made that mistake, completely take responsibility for it. Detective Davenport, I'm glad to hear you're alive. I offer my apologies. I hope this wasn't upsetting for anyone. And Kelly, thank you so much for letting us know. We really do appreciate that.
And you guys should absolutely let us know. And Kelly, thank you for doing it in a sweet way and giving us the personal connection there. That's kind of cool. So yeah, sometimes things come out of our mouth or we write things down wrong. And I don't know where we would have got that, but we are absolutely standing corrected here today. And we're ending with that. We just wanted to do a little updates again. Like this was a way to ease in. Every time there's like an update or a story on a topic we cover, I just kind of email it to ourselves. And we thought, let's just put this all together and have a little discussion about some of these old and kind of newer topics.
Yeah, they continue to reemerge, so we should touch on them. Yeah.
Yes, we hope you enjoyed it. We will be back with a all new topic and all new research in 2 weeks, but also jumps off from some stuff we've talked about before. So we're going to be talking about extremism in the military and in law enforcement, and how big that problem is or isn't. We will look into it for you guys.
Yeah, some fascinating research for that.
Yes. So with that, we are going to let you go. We are going to go, and we will see you next time on LA
Not So
Confidential. Bye, guys. Good to be back.
Bye, folks.
We sincerely thank you for spending some time with us today. LA Not So Confidential is part of the Crawlspace Media Network. Each episode is hosted, produced, and written by Dr. Scott and Dr. Shiloh. Our post-production editing and sweetening magic is handled by the multi-talented Jason Usry of Ear Cult Productions.
Our theme music, entitled Cool Vibes Film Noir, is composed and performed by the talented Kevin MacLeod. He graciously allows us to use his music via a Creative Commons Attribution license. Please check out all of Kevin's amazing work on YouTube.
All of the resources for each episode can be found on our website at la-not-so-confidential.com. You can find us on Instagram at LA Not So Podcast, on X at LA Not So Pod, and on Facebook at LA Not So Confidential. Media inquiries and bookings are scheduled at alienistentertainment@gmail.com.
Once a month, we go live on YouTube on Saturday afternoon, so pay attention to our social media announcements to join our interactive broadcast entitled Behind the Couch, where we interview guests on a number of psych, criminal justice, and true crime topics.
And lastly, we'd be honored if you joined our Patreon at patreon.com/LA Not So Podcast. With a subscription, you get an ad-free listening experience, additional content, host interaction, and you'll be the first to know about upcoming live events, social gatherings, and super cool swag.
Thanks for listening, and join us next time on LA
Not So
Confidential.